Right, so next up, let's get those tracks in there. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. First off, you can go to the File menu and you can go to Import. Now from here, you can either import a track or multiple tracks, or you can import a folder. You can also import a playlist, but really for this, we're going to be looking at importing tracks. So I'm going to go to Import Track here, and I can choose where I want to get the tracks from. So again, I can go into my music, into that Rekordbox folder that I made. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these tracks from within here. And I'm going to use exactly the same technique as we just did. I'm going to click on the top one, then scroll all the way to the bottom, hold down Shift on my keyboard and select the bottom one. This allows me to select all of those tracks. And then all I need to do is click open, and that will import those tracks. Now I'm not actually going to do this at this point in time because I want to show you a different way of doing it. And you can decide which one you like the most. Now you can also go to the Finder on your Mac or the file browser on your PC and drag and drop files directly from there. So I can go to my Rekordbox folder, the folder that we just created with all our tracks in, and I can actually drag and drop these tracks straight into the collection. I find this to be the easiest way of doing it. And when I'm adding more and more tracks to this folder, it's just easier for me to just pick the tracks from within here. So again, from within here, all I need to do is click on the top one, scroll all the way to the bottom one, hold down Shift on my keyboard, and that selects all of these, and then I can drag and drop them straight into my collection. You'll see the plus icon appear there, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into the collection. Now, one of the biggest parts of Rekordbox is the fact that whenever you import tracks, it analyzes them for a whole load of different things. And when you first drop your first tracks into Rekordbox, it will ask you to set the analysis settings. This will then help Rekordbox analyze your tracks more accurately. So the first thing it analyzes for is the BPM and the grid, and the first option it asks you for is the BPM range. Now, depending on the genre that you DJ, you might have a small BPM range in which you play. For example, I play house music, so my BPM range is generally between 122 BPM and maybe 130 BPM. So most likely, most of the tracks that I'm going to be importing are going to be within that range. But if you play multiple genres within your set, then you might want a larger range of BPM. So why change this setting? Well, you can actually help Rekordbox out because it's going to go through and it's going to automatically analyze your track for the BPM. And if you can give it a better range, a more tighter range for what it should be looking for, then it's going to mean more accurate results. For example, if you have both hip hop and drum and bass, then it might recognize one as the other. Say, for example, a hip hop track, it might actually recognize it as double time and maybe double the BPM. But if you can actually narrow it down to just a hip hop speeds, then obviously it will then detect it as hip hop straight away. So the default range is between 70 BPM and 180 BPM. Now, obviously this is quite a wide range and is more open to errors. So if you can actually narrow this down, then definitely do. So take house music as an example. I'm going between about 122 BPM and 128 BPM. So I kind of want to pick one of these ranges where that kind of fits kind of squarely in the middle. So I might go for maybe the 88 to 175 because if I take 122 BPM and divide it by 2, we're going to get 61. So obviously it's not going to detect it as that. So I think we're going to be quite safe with 88 to 175. But you can experiment with different ones if you're getting varied results. If you get it detecting your BPMs as wrong ones, then you can kind of change this and see which works out best for you. Next up, we have the option for analyzing for key. Now, this is totally up to you. If you don't want to DJ in key, then you can just leave this unchecked. Now, there's no real downside to analyzing for key unless you're actually using another piece of software to do this beforehand. So I'm actually going to check this. And finally, down the bottom here, we have this don't ask me again. So every time you import a track, it will actually pop up with this setting unless you check this box. So I'm actually going to check this box because once I've set it once, I'm probably not going to need to do it again. If you do need to change it again, then you can go to the preferences and go to the analysis tab. So I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to start importing those tracks. So we can now see it's going through and it's analyzing these tracks. You can see the percentage here going up. And once that gets to 100%, then we'll see that we now have a waveform within here. We have our artwork. Now, this might take any amount of time depending on how many tracks that you've imported, how quick your machine is, and a whole load of different factors. So now it's gone through and it's analyzed all those tracks. We can see all the information's within there. We have the preview on the left hand side here. We have the artwork and we have all of the information for that track. Now we can actually order this information any way we want to. So say, for example, if I want to order by artist, I just click on the artist column. and that then orders it by artist. I can also do the same with the track title as well. Now I can also move these columns around. So say for example, I usually prefer the artist before the track title. I can click and drag the artist column and just move it before the track title. Now you can order your collection in whichever way you want to, and you can change it whenever you want to, but I tend to order it by the date that I've added the tracks, because whenever I add a new track, I want it to be at the top of the list. So if we scroll all the way to the right, we can see there is a date added column. So I'm just going to click and drag this and move this a bit more towards the left. And then I'll scroll back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to order this by date added. So if I click on it once, it will show me the oldest one at the top. And if I click on it again, it will then show me the latest at the top. Now we've just added these 100 or so tracks on the very same day. So it's not going to show any difference within this column. They're all going to have the same date. But when we add another track a bit later, it will then show at the top of this collection. And that's usually a really great way to be able to organize your music.